Thank you for joining us. I'm 13 Investigates reporter Sierra Putman. Nationwide, nearly 10,000 women are suing companies that make and market chemical relaxers, claiming their products to straighten hair are making users sick. It's an issue we're covering with our partner stations across the country. Coming up, we'll walk you through the scientific studies that sounded the alarm, as well as the ongoing legal battle. But we begin with stylists, some of whom are suing after years of using these products both professionally and personally.
Okay, now I need y'all to come and get some of this to apply your protective gel around the edges.
At Texture's Institute of Cosmetology in Indianapolis,
It just protects from burning.
instructor Pam Cersei is teaching students how to apply a chemical relaxer.
Now this right here is a mock.
A relaxer permanently loosens a hair's curl pattern, making it straighter and easier to control. Retired stylist Irene Sanderson looks back on her own beauty school experience.
I was the queen,
Queen of the class of 76.
and I was in the business of helping people look good, and I loved it.
For 35 years, she used both over-the-counter and professional relaxers on her clients, children, and even herself. Irene now believes the ingredients in those treatments made her sick.
I didn't know what was going on with my body. I was doing a lot of bleeding.
In 2021, Irene learned she had uterine cancer.
It was devastating.
She needed radiation treatment. Daughter Stephanie Thomas watched as cancer stripped her mother of health, mobility, and passion. Irene is one of the thousands of women now suing cosmetic companies over these products. How do you feel that something that's so part of the culture might be making Black women sick?
I felt betrayed.
I'm angry.
Angry after learning 2 studies found an association between hair relaxer use and cancer. The sister study followed nearly 34,000 women of different races for almost 11 years. Then came the Black Women's Health Study.
We followed 45,000 women for over 20 years to look at their risks of uterine cancer over the long term.
For years, regular users like Irene applied the product frequently.
About once a month, maybe every 5 weeks or 6 weeks.
But researchers found women who used relaxers 4 times or more a year were twice as likely to develop uterine cancer compared to those who did not use the products. Scientists say chemicals can seep into a person's skin through cuts, burns, and undetectable microabrasions.
And from the bloodstream that's carrying all these exposures to other parts of the body.
The Personal Care Products Council, which reports representing 90% of the beauty industry, released a statement saying in part, association is not the same as causation. One does not necessarily lead to the other. The association observed in the study is with people who straighten their hair, not the ingredients in hair products or any specific chemicals, as this data was not collected. That's true, but previous studies have already found chemicals that can interfere with the hormonal system and lead to uterine and other cancers. But you probably won't see the chemicals listed on the back of a relaxer box or tub. Instead, you may see the word fragrance or parfum, a combination of ingredients the FDA does not require companies to disclose.
Women don't always know what's in these products.
Attorneys like Navan Ward hope legal action will force beauty companies to release documents that list the exact ingredients in these products.
The toxic soup of these chemicals is what makes these products dangerous.
Those efforts are happening at the federal level through a class action lawsuit involving thousands of plaintiffs like Irene. In response to that suit, attorneys for many of the companies wrote, defendants deny that their hair relaxer products are toxic and or defective in any manner. Defendants further deny that they engaged in wrongful practices and or misconduct of any kind. Ward represents dozens of clients suing cosmetic companies.
The manufacturer is responsible if they're going to sell a product to make sure that it's safe. And based on the information that they know and have known for years, quite frankly, it's time for them to step up and do the right thing.
Which could include financial compensation, discontinuation of the products, or warning labels. Cersei isn't sure a notice would change much.
If they want it, they're going to still use it regardless. It's just like, to me, a pack of cigarettes. If they still want to smoke it, it's there.
She and many others are skeptical about the lawsuits. Growing up, Cersei and other Black girls and women didn't always go to a salon. Instead, many receive kitchen hair services.
My mother didn't know what she was doing. She wasn't a licensed hairstylist. I'm just overprocessed our hair.
Cersei says she did not read the studies or the lawsuits. They involve both over-the-counter and professional relaxers.
It was glamorized. It was ingrained in our society that this is how you're supposed to look.
Irene's family believes ultimately the companies are responsible for what's in the relaxers and how they were marketed. They want people to know these products are now linked to uterine cancer in postmenopausal women, a disease that kills more than 13,000 annually. Black women, like Irene, are the most likely to die.
Everybody's gonna die, but it's the suffering before you die. It's the burden that's put on your family, and I don't want that for my family.
Keep in mind, relaxers and other hair straighteners are used by men and women from many backgrounds, but Black women are disproportionately impacted by this issue. That was a key finding of the research. Our Dallas reporter, Morgan Young, looks into the scientific studies that found an association between these products and a cancer that's becoming increasingly more deadly.
In October of 2022, the National Institute of Health published this research called the Sister Study. Researchers follow nearly 34,000 women of different races for almost 11 years. They found that women who used chemical hair relaxers more than 4 times per year were more than twice as likely to develop uterine cancer than women who never used them. Critics complained the women weren't studied long enough and researchers weren't specific about which products are in question. But another group was also paying attention.
Seeing that paper and their results did really spark us to look at this more closely in our population.
Dr. Kimberly Bertrand is an epidemiologist at Boston University School of Medicine. She is also the co-researcher for the Black Women's Health Study. Bertrand's team studied almost 45,000 women, exclusively Black women, for more than 20 years, twice as long as that first study.
We wanted to understand whether women who had a history of using chemical hair relaxers had a higher risk of developing uterine cancer compared to women who didn't.
Uterine cancer disproportionately impacts Black women, and the purpose of this study and others like it is to help determine why.
One of those exposures potentially is chemical hair relaxers, because these are products that are heavily marketed to Black women.
How would you explain what you found?
Among postmenopausal women, those who used chemical hair relaxers for many, many years or many times per year had about a 60% increased risk of developing uterine cancer compared to those who never used chemical hair relaxers or who used them only occasionally.
Their findings were published in October of 2023, nearly a year after the sister study was published. But Bertrand says the question at hand was not new.
As early as 1997 is when we first started asking about women's experience with using chemical hair relaxers. Even at that time, it was very clear that there are potential toxic chemicals included in these types of products.
Chemicals like parabens and phthalates, which are considered to be endocrine disruptors, meaning they can interfere with hormones, potentially leading to health problems.
We've published and found associations between use of chemical hair relaxers and uterine fibroids. We've seen modest associations for breast cancer.
Another major criticism of these studies is that they don't specifically name an ingredient in hair relaxer products that are in question. But Bertrand says there is a reason for that.
Women don't always know what's in these products. They're minimally regulated by the FDA. On the ingredient label, it may just say fragrance or preservative, and you don't necessarily know what you're being exposed to.
While different relaxers have different ingredients, nearly all of them include fragrance or parfum, which have their own ingredients that the FDA does not require manufacturers to list. And many studies have already found fragrance to be an endocrine disruptor.
So I think women have a right to know what they're exposed to and whether there's potential toxicity to the chemicals they're exposed to.
And as women started to hear about the science, they also started to sue.
We immediately started looking into it.
Brooke Cohen is a partner with Cohen Hirsch, a law firm with offices in Dallas and Atlanta that is representing about 100 women who are currently suing hair relaxer companies.
Anytime there's a product that harms women, it's something that we think is so important to get behind because there has to be change.
The firm is one of many, with cases all over the country. In February of 2023, just months after that initial sister study, what's called a multi-district litigation, or MDL, was formed in a federal court in Illinois to handle the more than 50 lawsuits that had been filed at that time.
If a person went up against Revlon or L'Oreal on their own, it would be so prohibitively expensive for that person that they would not be able to probably win. It's a David and Goliath situation, really. So in an MDL, all of the discovery, the fact-finding, the evidence is shared across the plaintiffs across the nation, and those costs are shared.
At the end of February of this year, 2 years after the MDL was formed, there have been more than 9,800 cases filed. There are a number of hair relaxer companies and manufacturers listed as defendants in these cases, but the biggest one is L'Oreal. The company distributes both at-home relaxer products and professional-grade products for stylists under its Soft Sheen Carson brand. In a statement, the company said in part, "Our highest priority is the health and well-being of all our customers. Our products are subject to a rigorous scientific evaluation of their safety by experts who also ensure that we strictly follow all regulations in every market in which we operate." It goes on to say, while we understand the desire of each plaintiff to find answers to and relief from their personal health concerns, we are confident in the safety of Soft Sheen Carson's products and believe the allegations made in these lawsuits have neither legal nor scientific merit. It also points out the initial sister study stated there would need to be further research to actually determine whether products cause the conditions in question.
There are also limitations to epidemiologic studies. That's maybe what the manufacturers in these lawsuits are sort of hanging on. The biggest thing that could be done immediately is like transparency on like ingredient labels, manufacturers being required to actually list what the ingredients are, and then women will know, what they're being exposed to.
When we come back, we'll have a conversation with Black women about their hair.
Was there a time when you recognized, like, my hair in and of itself may not be what's in or accepted?
When you go to apply for a job, you have to fit in to get in.
Hear the challenges they've faced and what they're teaching their children about hair and how they wear it. The average person has roughly 100,000 hairs on their head, according to Harvard scientists. And for many Black women, every one of those strands, coils, and curls have been the focus of discussion, and in some cases, discrimination. Columbus, Ohio reporter Rochelle Aline partnered with the nonprofit Black Girls Rising to have a multi-generational conversation with women about the pressures surrounding their hair.
First of all, thank you guys.
Womanhood is not a universal experience.
We're here to talk about our hair.
A quick poll of 8 Black women across 4 generations about their hair makes that clear.
What was the style growing up?
When I was younger, it was like you had like 4 braids when your mama did them.
If it wasn't dyed and layered and asymmetrical, you really wasn't. You really wasn't cool.
Afros. We wore afros.
When I got into high school in the late 90s, was at sew-ins, right? Everyone wanted straight hair.
But even with all of this versatility, when it comes to hair, there are still common experiences for Black women.
Do you guys remember a defining moment, or was there a time where you recognized, like, my hair in and of itself may not be what's in or accepted?
When you go to apply for a job, you have to fit in to get in.
And I remember my first job, 4 weeks in, I'm probably 3 hairdos in, and my supervisor comes to me and she says, "Delina, I searched for you on the Most Wanted because you change your hair so much." And I was like,
And to assimilate, many turn to a treatment to loosen or straighten their locks for years.
Can I just ask by show of hands who's had a perm here? Wow.
And can I clarify, are we talking a perm or a relaxer? Because those are 2 different things, right?
You're right. So I guess a relaxer. I know sometimes we use it interchangeably. So yeah, a relaxer. Yeah. Every single. I mean, I'm the anomaly. Most Black women have had a relaxer at some point in their life.
Starting at 8.
And now health concerns are turning many of those women off.
2013, I decided there was no more relaxers for me. It's because my first cousins, we've all been getting relaxers since 8 and 9 years old. And all of the females that I just named all have fibroid tumors. We all do. And we're like, wait a minute. I started doing research, saw a slight association or correlation to our relaxers, and I just asked the family as a whole, can we as a family stop doing this?
The companies, they're not looking out for us. They're looking out for the economical, they're looking for that.
What does accountability look like? What should it look like?
We as Black women are an economic force. These companies are run by multimillionaires. We have power in our economic voice.
And I think it's the exposure, to your point too, right? Making it widely known, putting the labels on there, the warning, right? Leaving it, up to the buyer, but make it known.
I think accountability starts within the community, because if we don't educate each other, how can we collectively rise up and say we don't want to support this brand?
Through this conversation, I hope it will spark other people to think about not only our conversation and what's in our products and how we do our hair, but to think about why do these Black women have to have a conversation around this.
We have to talk to our children, the ones that we touch, about loving your hair the way it is.
Such an interesting conversation. As we mentioned, thousands of women are in the middle of a legal battle over hair relaxers. 3 of the companies at the center of those cases are based in Georgia. So that's where many lawsuits were filed in state courts. Faith Jesse from our Atlanta station spoke to one woman about the medical battle that led to her lawsuit.
The scriptures talk about a woman's hair being her glory. We want to do everything to make our hair beautiful. By using relaxers, there was a way for my hair to be beautiful.
Zena Young is among the millions of Black women who turn to chemical relaxers to straighten their hair.
Can you talk to me about your hair care experience growing up?
I always had really coarse hair. First, they would use straightening combs and such to do our hair, and then after that, we started getting perms.
Do you remember how old you were when you first started getting relaxed and learned how to do it yourself?
I knew I had used relaxers for a long time, a really long time, from the age of 11 up until my mid to late 40s.
There are several lawsuits around the country because of the use of relaxers.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
You've decided to also file a lawsuit.
I had gone through an experience with cancer. I had to take off work. I missed time with my family, the bleeding for months on end, and I mean just the toll that it took on my body as well.
11 Alive News uncovered thousands of lawsuits filed nationwide against the makers of chemical relaxers, alleging that the products cause people to get cancer, and the companies knew or should have known the risk. Hundreds were filed in DeKalb, Chatham, and Gwinnett counties, where 3 of the companies are based. Some are included in a federal class action lawsuit in Chicago.
So what we know so far is that there are these endocrine disruptor type of chemicals.
Madeline Sutton is a board-certified OBGYN in Atlanta.
And they tend to be phthalates and parabens. They can disrupt your hormones. If you are disrupting at the cellular level, you can cause or at least be associated with different GYN cancers.
A Boston University study published in 2023 found postmenopausal women who reported using hair relaxers often had a more than 50% increased risk of uterine cancer. In addition to phthalates and parabens, various studies have indicated carcinogens like formaldehyde and heavy metals may be present in chemical hair relaxers. According to the FDA, while not all products include formaldehyde, many do include components that once heated can release it. In motions to dismiss the Georgia lawsuits, the companies argue plaintiffs failed to show how inadequate warnings caused their injuries and failed to directly link any of the product's ingredients to uterine fibroids and cancer risk. They also argue some plaintiffs didn't specify which ingredients were defective nor how they caused harm.
There's no big alarm going about it within the salon space.
April Story is among some stylists moving towards alternatives.
Do you ever have people come in to the salon asking to see the labels or ingredients,
No.
or do people generally just put their trust in what you're giving them?
Generally, they just put their trust into what I'm giving them. And if I'm being frank, our culture we don't really ask questions about the ingredients in the products, and I want to encourage us to do that.
As the truth unfolds, so does the fight for answers, justice, and embracing beauty without the damage.
I feel like they're responsible and that they should compensate. I think it would send a message to the corporations.
Our Atlanta station reached out to the 3 Georgia companies for a response, but never heard back. We've been talking about the lack of transparency with some of the ingredients found in hair relaxers, but there is one ingredient we do know is raising red flags: formaldehyde. And right now, the government is considering some big changes. Morgan Young explains what you need to know.
In 2023, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration introduced the idea of potentially banning chemical hair straightening products that contain formaldehyde from being sold and marketed in the United States. Formaldehyde is a known carcinogen, meaning it can increase a person's risk of getting cancer. It's commonly found in straightening products like Brazilian blowout products and keratin treatment products. It's also found in many chemical hair relaxers. The FDA actually released this information, stating it discourages consumers from buying products that contain formaldehyde. Right now, there are thousands of lawsuits pending across the country claiming that chemical hair relaxers are harmful, even products that do not have formaldehyde listed as an ingredient. And we know that the manufacturers of these products have denied all wrongdoing. But the FDA released this information in October, stating that even products that don't contain formaldehyde could contain chemicals that release it when heated, which we know is a key part of any visit to the salon. So how close is the FDA to actually issuing a national ban on formaldehyde? The agency has extended its timeline for issuing a rule on this multiple times. Keep in mind that a rule from the FDA always takes time, especially when there's a transition as a new presidential administration comes in. Currently, the FDA has March of 2025, this month, listed as a potential time period where we could see a proposed rule published to the Federal Register. Once that happens, there will be an opportunity for public commentary. Then the FDA will look at those viewpoints, make any necessary changes, and then publish a final rule with a date for when it would be effective and enforceable. Again, right now, the estimated timeline to actually publish the proposed rule is March, but again, we have seen this timeline pushed back multiple times before. In the meantime, we do know that the states of California and Maryland have already banned products with formaldehyde from being sold in their states, and we know that the state of Washington has already proposed a similar ban on those products. They made that decision earlier this year.
Coming up after a short break, making changes. We'll talk to the woman leading a company that's changing its approach to hair care, and we'll show you the shift some women are making to protect their health and their hair. Over the past decade, we've seen a number of hair products produced by Black women that are rooted in caring for and celebrating Black hair. Morgan Young spoke with the founder of one company who says she welcomes accountability and transparency in her industry.
I do love the celebration of our crowns.
But if beauty is a matter of what we see,
a lot of times we forget that.
Autumn Yarbrough wants women to look deeper.
The message needs to be focused more so on, in the Black community, about the inner health of hair and where it begins.
So in 2020, she launched New Standard, a beauty brand focused on a holistic approach to healthy hair.
The product that is the most important is our vitamins, the supplements. We have over 25 unique ingredients that we paid attention to. Collagen, it has your magnesium, vitamin D.
Ingredients that address the issues beneath the surface, like gut health and stress. New Standard also produces sustainable shampoo and conditioner bars and a HydraSilk bond system that is only available to professional stylists trained to use it.
I believe when you're a founder in products, I don't care what kind of product it is your responsibility and you must be accountable for the products you're making.
So she doesn't shy away from sharing why she has a passion for beauty and hair care.
I mean, you were on a box. Yes, I was on the side of the box.
Yarbrough's mother, Renee Cottrell Brown, created the Just For Me relaxer system in the early 90s. And her grandfather, Comer Cottrell Jr., created Proline, one of the first Black-owned hair care lines made for Black consumers.
I had an opportunity to learn a lot about the hair care industries, particularly the Black hair care industry. Belonging in the Black community, and then young Black girls belonging, Black women belonging. All of those things had been missed, especially during that time, and it was championed to have something called what it was, Just For Me.
We saw, that inclusivity in that space and, kind of reconciling that with the fact that there are now women who may have used that products that believe that they may have been dangerous.
Yes.
How do you feel about, just the conversation and questioning in the industry right now?
I'm actually happy for the conversation. I'm happy that we are talking about products and holding all parties accountable. I do believe founders need to be held accountable, but they're not alone. It's important for retailers to be accountable. It's important for the manufacturers, because most founders don't have their own manufacturing facility.
Yarbrough says Black hair founders in the 60s and 70s worked heavily with the FDA to create their products.
A lot of the products, unfortunately, that were on shelf, those were approved back then by the FDA.
But many of the brands and manufacturers behind hair relaxer products specifically are being sued by thousands of women who say the products harmed them. Yarbrough's family hasn't owned the product line it founded in nearly 25 years.
It took, 20, 30, 40 years to finally discover that there are certain ingredients that are deadly and possibly harmful, and that is a problem.
Does that motivate you to say, this is what's in my products, this is what we're doing, here's my transparency page?
Absolutely. I mean, before this even came up, it was an issue.
Yeah.
It's an issue in all products. It's an issue in every product that's made.
So now, one of the pillars of her company's creative process is research and development, or R&D.
Even if today it says it's safe, we're still doing the R&D to make sure it's safe for 10 years from now.
Building on her family's legacy while offering transparency and a deeper definition of beauty. Setting a new standard.
And many women are looking for a new standard, new alternatives because of these health concerns. Again, that recent study from the National Institutes of Health found women who use chemical hair straighteners more than 4 times a year face an increased risk of uterine cancer. As we've been talking about, thousands of women have since sued the companies that make and market relaxers, claiming the companies failed to warn consumers about the risks. Whitney Miller from our New Orleans station explores the search for alternatives and push for change.
Mariah Ford, or as she's known on YouTube, Mariah Celeste, knows just how important appearance is when showing up on the internet.
I'm a girl's girl. I love getting all dolled up and doing the hair and doing the full face.
She says it's even more important that hair and face stay intact when it comes to her day job as the Director of Marketing and Communications for the Louisiana Philharmonic Orchestra.
When audiences are coming into the theater, I'm usually standing at the front door greeting them, so I'm usually one of those first touch points.
Her go-to hairstyle? Protective wigs and braids.
Wigs and braids provide a lot more ease for me, so I can just throw on something and go. So it's quick and convenient.
Convenient and chemical-free. Like many women, Ford stopped relaxing her natural hair around 2012.
It got to the point where it was not helping my hair grow at all. So my hair was getting short and ends were constantly breaking, and it just wasn't healthy.
It's a similar story for Jessica Harvey over at Amber Nicole Salon and Studios.
Amber was telling me, looking at my hair, like, you really don't need to get these relaxers. I think we just preach it so much in the Black community.
Every few weeks, Jessica gets a sew-in installed by Amber.
A sew-in is, it's a weave install. You sew the bundles on top of the braids.
Amber's been doing these installs and more for well over 15 years. She says during that time, there's been a steady decline in her clients using relaxers to achieve straight styles.
Like 2012, 2014, I was still doing relaxers. Now though, like they've just been fading out. And I think that's just because girls are moving more into like heatless styles, more natural styles. And we're really just moving away from the chemical.
Eventually in 2022, Louisiana passed the Crown Act, which prohibits discrimination against individuals with hairstyles historically associated with race.
You can do a wash and go. You can do flat twists, braid out.
You won't find as many wigs over at Toned by Janasia Danielle. In her uptown chair, she showcases the natural curl.
As I learned color, I realized that it's easier to color natural hair because there's no chemicals, no nothing.
Janasia believes the easy accessibility of harmful chemicals has always been a danger to Black women. And she says kitchen beauticians shouldn't have been using boxed perms.
Like you can buy bananas and tomatoes and a relaxer in the same store. And we're talking about sodium hydroxide, a chemical that can melt a tin can.
It's part of the reason her client Tori Davis put relaxers away years ago.
My hair was very thin, was very damaged, and I just wanted to, I was like, I don't know what my actual hair looks like coming out of my head. So I was more curious about that process and that journey.
Tori says that journey was not easy.
The transition, I think, was the hardest part, just having the two different textures. But when I did the big chop, I don't know, I actually was very excited about the way that my hair looked. I don't know, it was kind of opened up a new thing in me and just embracing me and who I am.
Janasia says there have always been healthier alternatives to the creamy straightener, but access to them have been limited.
Those options may have been a Japanese straightening system or a keratin treatment. There are other routes that you can go, but we just knew relaxers, so that's what we used. And I don't think that those studies were being done. I don't think that they care to do a lot of those studies. They gave us what we wanted and left it alone, and now we're here.
Smith believes one thing is clear. Hair plays an important role in a Black woman's identity, and that identity shouldn't cost them their health.
Louisiana is one of 27 states that has a Crown Act or a similar executive order, according to crownact.com. It has also tracked similar laws in some cities around the country. Indiana does not have a Crown Act. Lawmakers filed bills in 2021, 22, 23, and 24. Those bills all failed and did not even receive a hearing. You can read more on this damage control series on our website. Go to WTHR.com/damage control to see the studies and some of the lawsuits yourself. Thank you for watching. I'm Sierra Putman.